Right. You hope the best brachos and you covered, right? But the ideal, you should identify each thing separately. Similar to what we came out. Right, exactly. At least for the Sfardim. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Okay, Yaron, you can send the group that we're on. Okay, we just gotta fix this for a second. Okay. Mem Gimel Amud Beis. The last thing that we said yesterday in Amazing Gemara, that it's better for a person to throw himself into a fiery furnace than to embarrass somebody in public. That famous Gemara that we all know, the story from Tamar, that Tamar was pregnant, and she was willing, and she was being taken out to be killed, but she did not want to identify by name the person that she became pregnant from, which was Yosef, which was Yehuda. Good morning, Yosef Atzadik.
Morning, Rabbi.
Good to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I didn't like to call you yesterday to say hello, so now I see you live. So she, as you know, she became pregnant, and from Yehuda, and she did not want to say it was from Yehuda. She would rather be killed, and rather than embarrass Yehuda. That's what the Gemara says. And that shows us how serious it is to embarrass someone. Okay, she sent to Yehuda certain items, and she said, recognize those items. And he admitted it was for me. I was the father of these. I was one who made her pregnant. That was the story, and she was willing to go to get killed. That's the level that Tamar was on. And the Gemara says from there we see that some understand the Gemara literally. The Gemara means to say if a person is faced with a situation to embarrass someone in public or take a bullet, it's better to take a bullet than embarrass someone. How do you like that, Nathan? That's how serious bury someone, because when you embarrass somebody, there's a movement of blood. Malbim pnei chaveiro, you turn white. Some of the red goes away, and some understand it means it's as if you killed the person. Others don't take it that far. Some say it means you have a right to take the bullet, but it doesn't mean you're obligated to take the bullet, right? Some things in life you have a right to do, but it doesn't mean you're obligated to do it. Some things you're obligated to do. So that's the Gemara yesterday. We ended off, but it just shows you the seriousness of embarrassing somebody. So when people are facing situations where they might embarrass someone, they should think about this Gemara and be very extremely careful. Also, we have another Gemara that says that if you embarrass someone in public, so maybe that could explain why it might. Maybe that's why. If a person could lose their olam haba for embarrassing somebody, Mem Gimel Amud Beis 43b. If a person, I'm just suggesting an idea that's coming to me now. If a person could lose their olam haba for embarrassing someone in public, so it can make sense why he should take a bullet. Better take a bullet than lose your olam haba. How do you like that, Mr. Haber? You hear that idea? So maybe it just shows you what it means. But the only thing is, people rationalize. They rationalize when they want to embarrass somebody. They say, I have a right to do it. Everyone gives themselves a head there. Yes.
I heard the lecture of Rabbi Fahi, and he was talking about that. And I don't remember he talked about from Korach portion, and he mentioned that, I don't know how he connected, I don't remember exactly, but he says, if somebody embarrassing you in the middle of the synagogue or whatever, and you're holding it yourself, you have a merit to request or anything you want. And a lot of people will run to you to say, you don't respond to that, and please ask this for me. that much merit you have by not reacting to the
yes,
embarrassing.
yes. You're on a tremendous level when a person embarrasses you and you don't respond, so on and so forth. Yes. Okay, good morning, Avram. Good morning, Shmuel. Okay, Tana
Good morning.
Rabbanan. We're about the middle of the page. The second is Tana Rabbanan. The first letters of the line is Vav, Gimel, Vav. Tana Rabbanan. Everyone have it? That stands for Gomer. Tana Rabbanan. Hey, everyone have it or not yet? I'll show you with my Gemara. In my Gemara, it's Mr. Ajmi. It's right over here. Mr. Haber, you have it? Okay, Nathan, you got it? Tana Rabbanan. Heviu lefanav shemen v'hadas. If they brought in front of you sweet oil that has a, Rashi's Tosfos says we're talking about oil has a very smell, has a nice smell. That means you took some spice and you soaked the spice in the oil. And as a result of that, the oil received a very, very good scent, a very good fragrance. And now you're going to say a bracha on the oil that has now a good fragrance because of let's say you might not smell the spice itself, but you smell the oil let's say the spice, the plant that you put in is inside this oil, and now the oil smells good as a result of that fragrance. It received a fragrance from that, and you'll say a bracha on the smell, right? Depending what type of plant did you put inside. Did you put a plant, if it's more of an herb that you put into it, then the bracha is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Borei Isvei B'Samim, that God has made herbs that give fragrance. And if you put something from a tree, like cinnamon in the oil or some other thing that comes from the tree, so then you would say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Borei Atzei B'Samim, that God has created wood that gives fragrances, delicious smell. And we said, good morning, Joseph, and we said also it's forbidden to smell the same way you're not allowed to eat or drink without a bracha. When you need to say a bracha on the smell, certain things that you're required to say a blessing on the smell, you're not allowed to smell without saying a bracha. So then you could smell it. Right, exactly. Then if you're not sure if it has a real smell it, and then if then it has a smell, then you can say the bracha and then smell it again. That would be acceptable. Yes. Good morning. So now we have the shemen and hadas, and the halacha says there's an order, a hierarchy of what comes first and what comes second. The same way we get you a Gemara. Okay. The same way when you have mizonot in front of you and you have shahakol in front of you, is something comes first and something comes second. The mizonot comes first, the shahakol comes second. What's the best way to show respect to the food? Give the bracha. You have to do it in the most best way. So too, the Gemara here has a question: what bracha comes first? Do you say a bracha on the shemen? Do you say a bracha on the oil, which received a very nice smell, or do you say a bracha? Do you say the bracha on the hadas? Which is which comes first? That's the Gemara's question. So Mr. Ashby says maybe the hadas is more natural. So we'll see what about Mr. Ashby. Mr. Ashby is going to be correct because the hadas is the item. It's the item itself that gives off the fragrance. The oil. Have a great day, Sammy. Received the fragrance from the item that was soaked inside the oil. So therefore, that's the reason Beis Hillel says that the item that is the direct item that you receive the fragrance from, which is the hadas, as you know, you say a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Baruch Borei Asei B'Samim on a hadas, because the hadas is wood. It's considered, and therefore you say and therefore that has a smell itself. That comes first. You would say a bracha on the hadas first, according to Beis Hillel, and then you would say a bracha on the oil that has a smell. Now, what is the smell? Now, the Shulchan Aruch explains that the only time you're going to say a separate bracha on the oil that has a fragrance if the fragrance of the oil came from a plant, right? Because let's explain. if I have hadassim in front of me and I have an herb that has a smell in front of me, right? So they're two different brachos. One's aseh b'samim, one's isvei b'samim. Because one's an herb, a plant. It's not wood. It's soft. It's not from a tree. You with me, Nathan? Clear my. Okay, so that's the Ashkenazim. By the way, so you know what Ashkenazim do? They just say mine. They say mine b'samim motzei Shabbat and everything. That's the Ashkenazim. Okay, but that's Ashkenazim. So now, but we're talking about the oil, the case of the Gemara. But now, if you have two different smelling items, one from the tree, and one from the plant, you would say a separate bracha on each one. One would be aseh b'samim, one would be isvei b'samim. But here we're talking about the oil received it from a plant, and therefore the bracha on the oil should be borei isvei b'samim, from the herb. It got the fragrance from an herb. And the question is, because if they both got it from the tree, if they're both the aseh b'samim, you're saying one bracha. If you have two different, let's say you have cinnamon. I have cinnamon in front of me and I have hadassim in front of me. They're both aseh b'samim. So I would say one bracha on one of them, and that would cover the other one, right? Same way if I have an apple and an orange in front of me, I say one borei on the apple, and that will cover the orange. But here we're talking about there's two different brachot possibilities here. In this case, it's a question of one's aseh b'samim, one's isvei b'samim. So who's the winner? Who gets first? Who's on first? Who's first and who's second? So therefore that's the question of the Gemara. Beishamai omrim, where mem gimel on the base. Beishamai omrim mevarech al Hashem. Beishamai said you say a bracha on the oil first, ve'achar kach mevarech al hadas, and then you make the bracha on the hadas. Now, why does he pick the oil over the hadassim? The Gemara will explain, because oil has two purposes. Because we go ahead and we use the oil for its smell, because you put this plant in the oil, it has a beautiful fragrance. And the oil is also used to smear on your, oils on your, you get a nice, on your hands, that's one of the things that we're not allowed to do on Tisha B'Av, on Yom Kippur, because it's pleasurable oils. You can't. Okay, but it's not used on a regular basis. It's not. But again, very good. Very good. But the hadas on which Mr. Angie pointed out on Yom Tov, but that's not for pleasure. The hadas is for mitzvah. So this is for mitzvah. So we're looking. These are bracha that we're saying morning on pleasure. We're saying a bracha on the pleasure that we're on this item. So the kavod, the item that has maybe more pleasures that we could use it for, or we can answer your point by saying it's something we do on a regular basis. Hadas on Yom Tov is something, it's a special thing, but oil, but this idea of oil, pretty much most days of the year, you could use it on your hand. Most days of the year, you could use it for its smell. In this particular case, when you put the fragrance, the herb into the oil. So that's the reason of Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai says that's why you got to go ahead and give precedence to the oil first, and that's more honorable when you're going to say a bracha. So you have to say it in that first. Aseh b'samim. Hadas aseh b'samim. So we spoke about we said before, we said that this was hadassim. We didn't discuss if you have hadassim, and here the Gemara seems to be discussing what comes first in this particular case. We have hadassim, which is aseh b'samim, and we have the oil that received the fragrance from a plant from an herb that you soaked in the oil, and therefore the oil is a isvei b'samim, because you have this. I'm not sure what it was. It might not have a smell. It might have been nothing. The oil might not have been anything beforehand. Meaning the only reason why you're saying a bracha on the oil, because you put this herb inside the oil, and it gave this oil a nice fragrance. Right? The regular oil doesn't have a smell, good smell. Right? You take a regular oil, it doesn't have the smell. So the Gemara says, Beis Shammai omrim mevarech al Hashem v'achar mevarech al hadas. Beis Shammai says you make a bracha on the oil, Shmona Shmuel Rev, on the hadas, and then you make on the oil. And Beis Hillel, Shammai says the oil and then the hadas, and Beis Hillel says you say the bracha on the hadas and then the oil. So Beis Hillel is your swear that you said before because it's straight. It's the item that actually gives off the fragrance, the hadas, and the oil just receives from something else. The oil is secondary. That's your swear. Amar Rabbi Gamliel. It's interesting. The Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Gamliel, Ani achriya. I am going to decide who the halacha will be like. So he says, I'm going to tip the scale in favor of Beis Shammai, even though that's not the general when there's a machloket between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The law follows Beis Hillel. But in this particular case, Rabbi Gamliel says, I feel that the scale, the reason for Beis Shammai is more significant than the reason of Beis Hillel. Because why? Because shemen zachinu l'reicho. The oil we are zocher, we could use the smell, this fragrance of this oil, and also v'zachinu l'sichaso. We could use it to smear for pleasuring purposes on our bodies. But hadas is l'reicho zachinu. God gave the hadasim are used for its smell, and l'sichaso lo zachinu. But we don't use hadasim for smearing on our bodies, and therefore the more honorable one to give honor to would be the oil. That's the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says halacha k'divrei machriya. Rabbi Yochanan says the halacha follows that opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, like Beis Shammai, that you would go ahead and say the bracha on the oil first. Yes.
Pleasurable sense. Do we make a bracha things that don't have pleasurable sense?
Like what? Give me an example.
For something that doesn't have a good smell, don't make a bracha.
Right. If it doesn't have a smell, you don't have benefit. You need to have benefit, right?
The whole reason that we're making brachot is because we get pleasure from that. Why should it matter whether something is natural or not in our calculation of what takes precedence? Meaning, I would have thought. So I'm also going according to the Shammai, but only because the whole purpose of the bracha is to give thanks for the wonderful smell. The fact that it's natural or it was infused is also, but the whole idea is that I'm thanking it not because it's natural, but because I'm smelling good. If something is natural that doesn't have a smell, I don't make a bracha. You understand what I'm saying?
Right, yeah. Okay, but you can still see why this is the source of the smell. Might be a reason to be.
You can answer your question also about food. I can make one bracha on the food. Why are there different brachot? Because there's different levels. Like food also, you can apply your question to. If the whole idea is to eat it, the taste tastes good, make one bracha on everything.
No, I make a brachot on the source when it comes from the tree, from the ground. That I understand. This in this particular instance, you're only making the bracha because it smells good.
No, but you're making it on the source. It's and minay.
Okay, but that's not the machloket is not the atzveh because we have that's very easily distinguishable. The reason that we're giving priority to the Beit Hillel does is because it's natural. But Shammai says, look, it has a multiplicity of uses. You can get more benefits from it, and that's not. But the reason that we make the bracha is really because
Right, because of the benefit. Right. And just on that point, just to, they explain, why don't you make a bracha before you take a shower? Why don't you take a bracha every time you open a light? I open a light in the room, right? Only Motzei Shabbat I make a bracha. But why don't I make a bracha? I open the light. Yeah, you need light. We're spoiled. We have Con Edison, so lights are always open. But let's say you're traveling somewhere and it's dark. So they explained, the rabbis did not say on everything you say a bracha, but on things that enter your body is more where the rabbi said, like food, drink, smell. Something that's outside of you, they did not. Oh, very good point, because very good. The oil is outside of you. That's a good point. But it's honorable because of that fact. It's subjective. I mean, I would think it's a good question. Exactly. I mean, I think what's considered, if most people, I mean, if you don't enjoy it, if you smell something, I don't know, if you don't have any benefit from it, would you say a bracha on an oil on a smell that you don't enjoy? I don't know that you would smell. What?
Somebody likes to smell gas.
Why would you? Because it's brachot and nehemim.
Right, if you don't benefit from it, I don't.
Right, so the other way around, right? So some people like to smell gas.
Yeah, but that's not made, maybe it's not an item that's made before it's smelled.
That's
I mean, there's certain items that are there, certain like certain fruits that have, you know, we saw fruits, let's say an etrog or a lemon. So I think of Avadia Yosef, I saw him say a bracha every Shabbat before he ate a lemon, whatever, he would also make a bracha anosin reach tov b'peiro every Shabbat on the lemon, because that's, you know, that's something. By the way, when you should know what Mr. Ashby just said. There's a discussion if you make a bracha on hot bread from the bakery. You're exactly what you said, right? Yeah, but there's a discussion. I don't know that we do it, but there is discussion in the halacha about, you know, in the Ramon, the Ashkenaz rabbi brings this. He says, Yesh Omrim. Right. He says there is an opinion that you should make, if someone who smells hot bread, you should make the bracha nosen reach toka peiro. And then he says something, you should not say a bracha, cultivate Yosef. Therefore, it says best don't intend to smell it. Best point to ask, he says don't intend to smell it. Because if you intend to smell it, you're getting yourself into a question whether you should say a bracha on it or not. Okay, so the Gemara continues. Rav Papa ikla lebi Rav Huna. Rav Papa came to the house of Rav Huna. Aisu lekamayu shemen v'hadas. They brought in front of him shemen and hadas. They had this oil that has a beautiful fragrance, and they brought hadas. Shoko Rav Papa. Rav Papa took Baruch. He took one of them. He took the hadas, and Baruch hadas beresha. He said a bracha on the hadas first, and then v'hada Baruch Hashem, and then he said the bracha on the oil, which was like the opinion of Beis Hillel. He did the hadas first. Now, so what happened? Amalei. So Rav Huna said to him, "Lo sovalamaha loha kedivrei hamachriya." You, the master, you don't hold like the opinion of the Machriya, which the Gemara said before was Rabbi Gamliel, who was the Machriya, who says the law follows Beis Shammai. So why are you saying the bracha on the Hadassim first? Amalei, so he says, Hachi Amarava Halacha Beis Hillel. He says, you know why I did it this way? Because I have Rava. I have Rava, the great Rava, who says the law follows Beis Hillel, and therefore you should go ahead and say the bracha on the hadas first. Now, the next line of the Gemara, some have it in the text and some doesn't have it. Some don't have it in the text. And Tosfos says that the Rif paskins like Rava, that you say on the hadas first. So it appears that he did not have the next line in his text. Because the next line says Velohi, that really that's not the case. It's not that he heard that Rava said that the law follows Beis Hillel. Rather, he wanted to get himself out of it. So he went ahead and he said the law follows, that Rava says the law follows Beis Hillel. Now, what does it mean he wanted to get himself out of it? So one of the commentators explained this was his own opinion. The rabbi's own opinion was that he should do an Hadassim, but he didn't want to say this is my opinion because maybe he didn't want to take it apart. Maybe it wouldn't have been respected, or maybe Rav Papa. So Rav Papa, he has Beis Hillel, but it's true. He really says that he felt the law followed Beis Hillel, but he didn't want to say that he didn't want to say it in his own name. That's a good.
Somebody's coming to say undecided. He has the authority to decide between two very big people.
Right.
If he established the law already, does somebody have the right to come and say, look, I hold against you?
So I would say like this: the fact that we had Rabbi Yochanan going on record. Rabbi Yochanan is a later rabbi, Amora. So the fact that Rabbi Yochanan needs to take a position and takes a position means that another Amora has the right to take an opposing position. So, meaning we're in the same, with this major, we're in that league. What'd you say? So I'm saying this Braita, then there's Rabbi Yochanan, which is not a Braita, right? The first thing was a Braita, but then there's Rabbi Yochanan who says, I want to tell everybody the law follows Beis Shammai. But once Rabbi Yochanan needs to tell us that the law is, I mean, it's not clear. I mean, okay, no. According to the Machriya felt that's the law, but it doesn't mean that that's accepted by us as law. The fact that Rabbi Gamliel says, Rabbi Gamliel, say the law follows Beis Shammai. Does that mean that we are going to accept that as the accepted law? Or maybe because remember, that's a great chidush. The Machriya to go against Beis Hillel is big time. It's not a simple thing. And therefore, that's why maybe we needed Rabbi Yochanan. We need Rabbi Yochanan, later rabbi, to say, I still hold like the Machriya. And comes Rav Papa and he disagrees with this. No. The law follows Beis Hillel, but he didn't want to say it. And he acted that way. In practice, he practiced that way. As when they brought in front of him the hadassim and they brought in front of him the oil. But he didn't want to say it. I don't want to say that. I hold like that. See, so it's interesting. That's a good question. I mean, he didn't want to take the honor for himself. Maybe his intention was, I don't want to say it in my own name. As if, I mean, that's what he was saying. But is it subjective to the person? And maybe would that change? I don't know that we find that the law will change because one person, like if you enjoy it. Okay, but it's a good point, but I don't think then the Gemara should have said that. He should have said that. He didn't answer that. See that's not enough of a reason to say that in that level that I take first. Right, because that's what I was saying. Because the first Braita that says Rabbi Gamliel says I agree with Beis Shammai, it's still not. That's not going to be the end of the day because it's still Beis Shammai. It's not the usual halacha. Therefore, we need to bring other opinions to see if that the later rabbis accept that or not. Okay.
Is that ever anywhere in talk when somebody said, I say like something and it's not true? They go, it really wasn't the case. You just said it to get out of it.
Okay, it's a good point. Right. Obviously, the commentators they deal with we have to see how they explain your point. But here he wants to say something in the name of somebody else, which you shouldn't be doing if it's not this. And maybe he wanted he didn't want to show that I have such big shoulders to do such. Maybe he wanted to, if I go ahead and say I disagree, maybe people look at that as a bold thing. Gracefully without showing that I'm
bigger than you. I'm posing my will on you.
Right. That's how. But you're saying good. I mean, is that acceptable to go ahead? Because I don't want to show that this is my opinion. I'm going to quote someone it's misleading. So it's a great question. What you're asking, how could he just, unless later on he explained himself, but he says that's maybe he told here in the room, I just did that over here, but afterwards he came out and he said, I want to tell you.
There are a lot of something like that when it doesn't involve. These are great people. Look what they're arguing about. First of all, they're not arguing about who's richer, who's better looking, who's whatever. He's arguing about a source of law that people are going to follow. So maybe the lesson for us is that because we know it's recorded here from religion. Yes, sometimes you allow that. Like Hashem said, why did she laugh? Did you say I'm old? When he said,
I need the context that I don't need to okay.
The lesson is that sometimes to exit yourself gracefully in something where the alternative would be to make somebody feel like you think you're better than them. It's okay to use a bigger name. Who told you? Manny told me I could go there. It's okay. Your neighbor told me it's all right. It's okay. Maybe he didn't let me go. Because just to get out of that moment and then.
It's a good halachic question. I think it's a good halachic question, but you need a posek, because it's a slippery slope sometimes, as you know, there are people, once they start going that route, you don't know where that route, so it needs to be very careful on that route. Yes. Good.
From speeches that they were giving from the rabbi, they have no book, so they were taking notes, and maybe Rav Papa didn't understand the halacha of the rabbi was saying at the speech. And he just said, I think I remember that my rabbi said that, and he put it in the Gemara, no? This is right that
Right, but he knew it doesn't seem like he was questioning. He seemed like he remembered everyone knew what each one said.
What was his concern?
There are,
What are they
r-
is he trying to get at? They want to
right, very good. So the Gemara is saying, did Rava ever go on record? See, the question is, did Rava? Rav Papa showed, right, exactly. Rav Papa showed what he did, but the question is, he quoted when they questioned him, Rav Papa, how are you why are you doing that? Aren't you going against Rabbi Gamliel? The Gemara had established. So Rav Papa said, you know what? But he didn't say that. He said, Rava said the law follows Beis Hillel. And to that, the Gemara says, we did our research, like Yaron is saying, and we checked it. Rava never said that. Rava never, we don't have Rava, the Rava never said such a thing, that the law follows Beis Hillel in this situation. Rava never said it. So, how do we know? Very good. How do we know what he said? So maybe it could be, maybe to answer Terry, but maybe Rav Papa, when he left, he himself said later on, he told, Rava never said it. I just said it because maybe Rav Papa himself was honest with the situation. But at the moment, and therefore the Gemara is saying below he. It's not, even though Rav Papa said Rava said it, Rava didn't say it. Rav Papa told us the reason why the reason why I said it was just I didn't want it to be in my name. I go against the mafia. But Rav Papa informed us, he told us the truth. And maybe that answers your question. It's not like he left it in a way that people will misunderstand because at the end of the day, if Rava said it, Rava's, okay. Tana Rabbana. Heviu lifnehem shemen v'yayin. We have a braita. They brought in front of the person shemen and yayin. Now we go, before we had shemen and hadas, and now we got wine. So wine, we're going to be saying a bracha borpeh. Yes, now we're in a different level. Now we're not just fragrance and fragrance, we are fragrance and food, fragrance and liquid. So now, what do you say a bracha on first, and what do you say a bracha on second? And the Hebrew once pointed out, when we see the sensitivity of the Gemara, we're trying to figure out what you say first, what you say second. You get to sensitize us to the importance of the bracha and everything. How we're going to have machlokas on these little, which seem to us to be a little thing, but to the Gemara, there's no such thing. Every action that we do in life has to be done in its best fashion, in the way it's supposed to be done. It's not a haphazard life. We don't live haphazard life. Even the way we eat and the way we drink and the way we smell, what is the best way to do it? And that's what we have to realize, is the sensitivity. Joseph, you hear that? Is that clear? Very good. Yeah. Okay. So the Gemara says, Viu lifnehem shemen v'yayin. Beishamai omrim ochez es hashemen b'yamino. You're supposed to go ahead and hold the shemen, the oil, in your right hand, because the general rule is when you make a bracha, the item that you're saying the bracha, you hold it in your right hand. For Ashkenazim, we say if you're a lefty, you would hold it in your left hand. If you're saying a bracha on a food, you would hold it in the left hand. That's your stronger hand. I think many would say that for Ashkenazim. Sfardim, I presume they most probably they're more on the right hand, even for a lefty, but they have to check up that halacha. But any lefties in the room? No lefties. Yeah. You so when you say a bracha, and when you drink a drink, you hold it in your right hand or your left hand? I presume.
It depends what I drink. If it's a warm coffee, it's on the right. If it's cold, it's on the left.
So,
So I try to do the right one. But when I'm looking myself,
so you're saying, what do you say? If who's that, Shmuel Rave?
No, it's Yosef.
Yosef, what would you do with a coffee? What hand would you make the bracha with the coffee?
With the right hand.
With your right hand? Interesting, right, and the drink, what would you say?
On the left hand.
Okay, you have to look up, okay, that's.
And if it's lechaim, it's a right hand for sure.
Okay, but whatever, you have to see, we have to see what the poskim say about what a lefty Sephardi does. But a lefty Ashkenazi, I think, would say it in the left hand. Okay? Okay. Okay, it's very good. So the Beis Shammai, that's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel will say you do it on the wine first. Beis Shammai Omrim, right there. And Beis Shammai Omrim, and again, we see from the Gemara, no, you take in your right hand. So the question is, the lefty's strong hand might be called his right hand, so to speak. So that would be the reason for the Ashkenazim why they might say the bracha, but that's his strong hand. Beis Shammai Omrim, Tana Rabban, Hevil lifneim shemen v'yayin. Beis Shammai Omrim, ocheis hashemen b'mino. You hold, right? Most people are righties, right? You hold the shemen in your right hand. V'sayayin b'smolo, and you hold the wine in your left hand. Umevorech ala shemen, and you first will say the bracha on the shemen, on the nice smell, and after you go ahead and you make a bracha on the shemen, then there's a yayin b'smolo. And then, so what would you do? You go ahead, and after you make the bracha on the oil, then you move the wine to your right hand, and then you'll make the bracha on the wine, because you're going to move. When you say the bracha itself, you will say the bracha while it's in the right hand. Now the Gemara says, Beis Hillel Omrim. Beis Hillel says, Ochez esayayin bimino. You go ahead and you say the bracha on the wine in your right hand. Vesashemen b'smolo, and you say the bracha on the oil. The oil will be in your left hand when you say the bracha on the wine that's in your right hand. You'll have the wine in your right hand. The oil will be in your left hand. So it's like similar, like on Motzei Shabbat. What do we do when you have the psamim, right? You have the wine in your right hand, and the psamim you have in your left hand. So when you say the bracha on the wine, you're holding the wine in the right and the psamim in the left. When it's time to say the bracha on the psamim, you hold the psamim in your right hand. So, and then it says, then it says, you first say the bracha on the wine, and then you say the bracha on the oil, which has a nice smell. And then you go ahead and the leftover oil, you could go ahead and wipe onto the head of the shamash and the head of the waiter, in order that you don't want to go out to the market with hands that have a smell, because the smell of the oil went onto the hands of the person who said the bracha, and you don't want to go out with we'll see more about that, why you don't want to go out with this fragrance on your hand. And we're talking about the Talmud Chacham, the Torah scholar, that the Gemara will explain that it's not respectful to go out smelling with such perfume, like smelling perfume. We'll see why it's not respectful for him to go out like that. So therefore, he could put it on the head of the shamash. But if the shamash is a Talmud Chacham, if it's a Talmud Chacham, then tochu b'kosel, then you'll smear it on the leftover oil that's on your hand. You'll put onto the wall. It's not respectful for a Torah scholar to go out to the shuk smelling with all these fragrances, like smelling with perfume. and we'll see what the problem is. The Gemara will explain the following. Tana Rabbanan, Shisha Dvarim Gnai LeTalmid Chacham. There are 6 things that are not respectful for the Talmid Chacham, that it's not nice for him to do. What not appropriate for him to do. Al Yetze Kishu Mavusam L'Shuk. He should not go out to the market when he smells from perfume. Val Yetze Yechide B'Layla. And he should not go out, and the Gemara will explain each one of these things. He should not go out Yechide B'Layla. He should not go out alone at night. He should be someone else with him. Don't go out alone at night. He should not go out with shoes that have patches on the shoes, patched up shoes. He shouldn't talk with a woman in public, in the marketplace. It doesn't look nice for the Torah scholar to be engaged in conversation. If he's engaged in conversation with her in a more private setting, then it may, obviously he needs to talk to her about certain things. Maybe she has halachic questions. The women came to David HaMelech, right? David HaMelech was involved with dealing with halachot, but in the public, it's not. She shouldn't be speaking with her. And he should not sit in a group with Am Haaretz, people who are so uneducated, people that are not learned, not educated at all. He shouldn't just be sitting with them. We'll see more about this, right? Vayikanes b'achrona. He shouldn't be the Beit Midrash. If you're a Talmid Chacham, you shouldn't be the last one coming into the Beit Midrash. You should come in earlier, right? V'yesh omrim. Some say that you should not take big steps, because when you walk with big steps, it affects your eyesight, and that shouldn't be that shouldn't be limited to a Talmid Chacham. But here, right. Very good. We'll see more about exactly. And the Talmid Chacham is not allowed to walk like this. You can't walk like you own the world type of thing, but really nobody's allowed to walk like that. It's a sign of ga'ava. So we have to, so a couple of these things that are listed here, we have to understand why it's unique for a Torah scholar, because that should be, or maybe it's emphasized, or it's a genai l'Talmid Chacham. It's something that's very derogatory. Meaning for other people, it's one issue. An average person walks with like this. Okay, he's not acting with anava. But a Torah scholar walks like this, it's much worse. 2 people could be doing the same thing. But if you're a Talmid Chacham, then you're held to a different standard, and it's very not nice. It's much worse than you're measured by who you are. Subjective, as we say. And therefore, that's why it's a gnai. It's very derogatory. It's very not nice for the Talmid Chacham. Now the Gemara, and maybe also you could say perhaps when it comes to a large step, the Talmid Chacham is supposed to be the role model for others to follow. And if you're going to be walking with this big step, and other people will follow as well, because they learn from you, and therefore they're going to have bad eyesight, as we said, as a result of that. So maybe it's very derogatory for the Talmid Chacham. Everybody, it's a problem. But the problem is the Talmid Chacham, it's a greater problem because people are going to learn from. And maybe that's why the Gemara emphasizes the Talmid Chacham. Now, Al Yetzei Kishu Mevusam B'Shuk. So he says, what's the problem of going out with perfume to the market? How do you like that? We're talking about a place where people where suspected men have relation with other men. In such a town, in such a community, so then it was common, Rashi says, they would put on the perfume to attract other men. So therefore, in that situation, in that locale, in that location, that's where we say the Talmid Chacham, in a normal place that men are not suspected of such appropriate behavior, So what's wrong if the Talmud Chacham is wearing a nice smelling thing? What's wrong? But if you're in a place that has such behavior, so then there's a concern that people might suspect that he's interested in such behavior. Chas v'shalom. Amar Rav Sheshet, lo amar el b'bigdo. The only problem is if he puts on his outside, on his clothing on the outside, then people are going to suspect that maybe he's interested in chas v'shalom such activities. Although begufo, but if he puts it directly on his body, that's to take away the bad smell, the sweat that he has. Therefore, there's no problem to put on antiperspirant, that type of stuff. Of begufo zeyah ma'avrele. He's just everybody. It's the zeyah. So he says zeyah ma'avrele. The sweat takes away the smell, goes against the smell of the perfume. So therefore, it's not going to be such a strong smell of perfume. So therefore, because the perfume is going against the sweat, so therefore, there's no problem with him wearing this perfume on his body itself, putting on his actual flesh. But the problem is that he should not put it on his clothing. Amar Rav Papa says, "Usaro kibigdo dami." If you put it on your hair, if you put the cologne, the perfume on your hair, that is like your garment. According to the first opinion, it's because your hair is not so sweaty. It doesn't have the power to knock out the smell of the beautiful perfume that you're putting on, and therefore it will be very strong smell, and therefore there's a concern that it looks like you're doing such activity. For army law, and there are those that say kegufo dami. Some say that the hair is like the body, and because there is a certain amount of sweat, people do sweat a certain amount. So the question of the Gemara is, how do you look at sweat? Is there enough sweat in the hair? It's like a gray area. So some say the hair is like the garment, some say the hair is like the body, and depending how you look at the hair, whether you could put it on the hair or not. So the face, it's a good question. Is the face sweaty or not? Might the face is the face, right? Anything to take away. The only possibility of the face if there's sweat, but usually there's no sweat on the face, right? The hair by itself has I mean, we have to look. We'd have to look up the halacha to do justice to answer your question. If you remind me, I'll look it up. Now, why shouldn't he go out at night alone? People might think you're going out alone at night. Maybe he's going to have activities with a woman. Meaning, the Gemara called it a gnai. Meaning, we had a halacha earlier that maybe people shouldn't go out alone at night because of mazikim, because of the shedim, because of the demons. But that's not a gnai. That's not a derogatory thing if you go out alone. It's just, you're just putting yourself in some sort of danger. Sakana. But here we're saying there's something not nice about it. So it's not nice, it's a gnai. Right. It doesn't look like something not nice about it. That's why the Gemara says, the problem with Yechidi going out at night for the Talmud Chacham, it's not about the shedim. It's not about the demons. It's about people might suspect he's going to do inappropriate behavior with a woman. Again, you just see the standard that you, as someone's a Talmud Chacham, has to be realized. You're held to a higher standard, and you got to be extra careful on your activities. Because of chashad. That's only if the Talmud Chacham doesn't have a set time to go out at night. Meaning, let's say he has his rabbi, the Talmud Chacham's rabbi gives a shiur every night at a certain time, 10 o'clock at night. No problem. Everybody knows he's going out at night because the rabbi gives a shiur. But the problem is only when there's no time, no specific time, then people will be concerned. 11 o'clock. What's going on? What's going on? Nothing's going on at 11 o'clock. There's no shiur going on at 11 o'clock. But really, the Talmud Chacham is just going there because he needs to take a walk at night. But you have the people might suspect you. When there's no set time of a kvili idnei, but if there's a set time for him to travel, so the Gemara says, then meida yediyat. Then people know, everybody knows the idnei ka'azel. He's going for his shiur, and therefore, since he's going for his shiur, his regular class that he attends, nobody's going to suspect it. So we see from here, we'll see tomorrow, we'll continue tomorrow on the list of why the list of these 6 things that a Torah scholar should not be involved in doing these 6 things. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Thank everybody for joining. Yeah, we'll
Thank
say
you.
a
Have a
Kaddish.
great.
We have a minyan.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thanks, Rabbi. Good day.
I think we
Thank
need
you.
more. I don't think we have. Did you find me? Did you see downstairs?
Yeah.
Did you see downstairs? See if they got 2 people. Have a great day, everybody. Avram Shmuel, have a great day. No, they need them. We need to have them in the room. Avram, take care. Have a great day.